One of the fastest new figures to hit comic store shelves. Today we're going to be having a look at the DC Collectibles DC Essentials figure number 4, Reverse Flash. This DC archenemy zooms into battle in this 6.97-inch DC Essentials Reverse Flash action figure that features an impressive 21 points of articulation. So hold the phone. You're saying that Reverse Flash is a little bit taller than Batman? Well, to prove that, I'm going to take my new tape measure here. And let's measure off from the bottom of the foot, obviously the bottom where the figure is standing, to the very top of the figure, which is a little bit about right there. We're going to hit hold. The figure is 6.9 inches. Now it said 6.97 inches, and if we switch it to centimeters, the figure is standing at 17.7 centimeters in height. And then for also some size comparisons, we'll move Reverse Flash over and we'll bring in Batman. Now this is the sort of thing where looking at the two figures side by side, there doesn't seem to be much of a difference. Perhaps to the very sliver, Reverse Flash is a little bit taller than Batman here to the left. For accessories, these are the things he comes included with. No, your eyes are not playing tricks on you. He comes with absolutely nothing, as squat. Could have come with, at the very least, a display stand, which I'll talk about in a few seconds. Or at the very least, it could have also come with a few extra hands. But he doesn't come with, sadly, neither. Now, going back to what I was just about to say, he doesn't come with a display stand because it doesn't have peg holes on the undersides of his feet, which is about the only thing that I wish DC Collectibles will improve on when it comes to the future Essentials line. They've got to get these guys some peg holes happening, because unfortunately, Reverse Flash, as good as he looks, you can't do anything else with him other than museum posing him, which is essentially just standing the figure straight, and then the arms to the side, or the arms doing something, but the legs basically are staction to being exactly straight. With 21 points of articulation, of course, you could have him in a running pose, but there's nothing really to attach the figure to, like a clip, a clamp, something. Unfortunately, he doesn't come with it. What he does come with, though, is one of the best head sculpts I think I've ever seen for the Reverse Flash. If you could pick one figure, in my own humbling opinion, to define this particular line, I'm glad that Reverse Flash was the first of the 4 figures that we've got from this new wave. I think this head sculpt is awesome. I can't even think of how else I would have improved this head sculpt other than putting maybe just a little bit more of a sneer in the mouth area. I mean, this figure is absolutely brilliant with what they've done with him. Sadly, though, it does come with a price. And at least on my figure, the price is he's got this little nick on the side of his face. I can't imagine it's supposed to be there. I don't think it's supposed to be there at all, but I could probably pretend he's just got a little gash there from fighting against the Flash. But I absolutely love this head sculpt. The facial skin tone is dead right. It couldn't be any more perfect than this. It actually looks like a cel-shaded model of something that I would see from like an animated feature. I love the piercing red eyes that they've given him as well. And even further to that, they've panel lined what looks to be the top of his, or the undersides of his eyelashes there, the eyelid area. The rest of his eye doesn't get that, but just that little bit of black lining right above his eyes definitely goes a long way. The paint is vibrant. The paint is bright. A very bright, sunny yellow. And sunny would be the last thing you would certainly think of when you think of Reverse Flash here. But the colors on him are brilliant, just bright, almost piercing. The emblem, about the only thing that also shares the red along with the lightning bolts on his waist, the glove area, and of course the lower boots. Very cleanly applied. It actually doesn't even look like it's been painted, rather than it's been printed onto the torso of the body. It's sort of kind of like Batman in the sense that his whole body is really one color, and then they've just added a few little accent points to it. If you look at the two figures side by side, it's probably to no surprise that it looks like they've used the exact same body. So where does he get that extra lift from? It certainly can't be from, maybe it is from the legs. The legs seem like they may be just a hair taller, or at the very least it could be the same leg sculpt. It's probably just his head that's giving Reverse Flash just that little bit of extra height clearance over Batman here. But both look like they are using the same body sculpts. I would not be surprised if this particular line probably cycles through about 4 different molds. They're probably going to be like the standard Buck body here. Probably one that's a little bit shorter, one that's going to be a little bit skinnier, and then there's going to be probably a female body mold. Again, I like the head, I like the body sculpt, love the head sculpt, and again, the paint very clean on it, though there really isn't a whole lot that you can mess up here. Again, the lightning bolts are really nicely applied. Also to be said for the areas on the gloves. And then he's got his boots. And the boots are very shiny by contrast to the rest of the figure. The figure really, other than just the side fins here, which I can pleasantly say, they are intact. I do this though, you know what that usually means. Yeah, you know what that means. That means that's fragile plastic. So if anything's going to break, unfortunately, on this Speedster, it's probably going to be these little lightning fins then on the side of his head. So be a little mindful of that. But what I was touching base on earlier, though, is his boots are that same sort of shinier red plastic to what he's really getting at the top of his fins here. Other than that, the figure stays generally pretty matte. And I don't mean your buddy matte, I mean matte the paint. I do actually kind of like that it is a shinier black plastic down, shinier red plastic, I should say, down here, whereas the rest of the body doesn't get any of that. It draws some attention to really the one talking point of his boots, which again really separates themselves then for the rest of his body. He's got treaded soles, which if you look at Batman's also did have the same treaded soles, so the exact same foot sculpt also been used here. For articulation, his head rotates all the way around. It's actually on a pin and hinge joint, or pin and a ball joint there. It's a ball joint hinge joint, I should really say. There's the hinge joint, and then the ball joint sits atop of that. Now I find that, unfortunately, Reverse Flash is a little bit more difficult to get his head to move up and down. I think a lot of it is just because I'm being very careful not to put too much pressure on these side pieces here. But the head does rotate all the way around. Shoulders hinge out. As well, you can rotate the arms all the way around. There's a swivel on the bicep. Double hinge happening on the elbow. There's one hinge, there's one hinge. That gives you 2 hinges. And might I also just say, I love the fact that the hand sculpt is like this. It's got this sense of like, I just want to destroy the world, and at the very least, I want to destroy everybody that Flash cares about. It's sort of those power-inducing, power-controlling hand. And sadly, he only has one of them. The other hand is relegated to just a fist. Sad. The upper torso does have a crunch, but I just find so far these two figures that I've picked up very stiff on the joint. And let me not say this, well, let me say this to you. Don't read that as I'm disappointed that it doesn't have a loose joint. At the very least, quite the opposite. The waist swivels all the way around. Again, nice stiff joints happening on these figures. Legs hinge out. There's a ball joint happening on the interior sockets there. He has a swivel on the thigh. Little on the looser side, I have to admit, than the Batman. He does have a double hinge on the knee. And while he doesn't have anything in the boot, he has more than a sufficient amount in the ankle. The ankle does have a rocking point, but it is unfortunately one of those joints where it hinges only by the way it's facing. So what you have to almost do is rotate that hinge and then bring the foot back around to give you that extra hinge joint. And again, it rotates all the way around. A good, solid figure here from Reverse Flash. Strictly speaking, from solely the sculpt and the sculpt alone, I can't think of anything I would really change about him. There are a few little elements, things that they could certainly do to tweak this particular line, one of which being putting peg holes in the undersides of the feet. But again, from a sculpt level, there's nothing I would change here to Reverse Flash. For obvious reasons, they ended up going with Batman as part of this line, which seems to be the go-to for DC Collectibles. Whenever they release, they did this certainly with the Icons line too. Batman came sort of first. He introduced collectors to the new line of figures. Superman sort of came later, as well as Wonder Woman, and they've repeated that. History has repeated itself here with the DC Essentials line. But while I did really like Batman, I think it's Reverse Flash here that's going to really define this line. Reverse Flash has set the bar extremely high, and I'm curious to see where now they're going to go based on how good the head sculpt here and the overall execution here is on Reverse Flash. Now, don't read that as this figure is 100% perfect. As you probably can see on the back of his torso, he's got a little bit of a scuff mark that is kind of sitting around the shoulder area. There it is right there. And the biggest detriment to this figure, which I find is worse on Reverse Flash than it was on Superman, is really loose ankles. I've tried this final looks here a couple of times now because the figure has toppled over because his ankles are a little on the loose side. This could simply be fixed for the fact that if they had included a display stand, or at the very least, if they had put peg holes on the undersides of the feet, I wouldn't have as much of the problem as I'm having right now. Overlooking for the fact that the figure is a little loose in the ankle area, I adore this figure. I adore its head sculpt. And this again sets the bar real high for what we may get with future Essentials figures. At the time that you are watching this review of the Reverse Flash, I still have yet to pick up the Flash or the Deathstroke, but rest assured, I've got my local comic book store ordering them as we speak, and as soon as they arrive, expect reviews of those will follow. In the meantime, though, today we were having a look at the DC Essentials. This was the Reverse Flash, which I believe was figure number 4. If you didn't get a chance to have a look at the Batman figure review, it should actually be the one just before this if you want to check that out. Make sure you hit that little subscribe button down below and also hit that bell notification so you'll never miss a beat when it comes to future videos. Make sure as well, you swing over to the main page and check out the section that says videos. See if there's anything that you may have missed along the way. Scroll down, look at the glorious thumbnails that have been posted there, and see if there's any videos that you may have missed along the way. More videos will be coming your way, so stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.